What's up, everybody? It's Devin Mann with Man Versus, and I have a very special guest, one of my closest friends with her own podcast. Nikki, what's up, girl?
Hello. It's great to be here. I am Miss Lovett. Gonna introduce myself like a teacher, I also, like said, my podcast, A Fraction of My Reality. You can find me on Google, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Yep, I'm getting somewhere.
And I kind of like the name of her podcast because it's like a fraction. It's like she's a teacher. She's a math teacher. So it's like it's kind of clever. Like it's clever. I like it. Yeah, it's dope. I like it. But yeah. So I brought Nikki on the podcast. We're doing a little collab, kind of vice versa. She brought me on hers as well, and so we're gonna get into it with a lot of educational talk. And I feel like given everything that's happened, we talk about systematic oppression, like what we can do to get out of this, like what are the steps. So everyone knows, what we need to do with the police, and everyone knows what we do with the voting. But what can you do personally more on your end, like with the schools and educations, and like what can we do like that? So I figured, why not bring in a black woman who's a teacher? Is that kind of smart, right? That's kind of smart, right?
I dig it.
But so tell me about yourself and how you wanted to become a teacher.
How I wanted to become a teacher, like I said, and I talked about this on my podcast too, it's just like a thing. I don't know if it was because seeing my teachers, it's the first kind of outside of family prominent person, because I've been in school. I did the whole pre-K, kindergarten, everything like that. So teachers were always a huge part of everything. So it was just from the get-go in school, I want to be a teacher. And it changed a little bit
from when you were a kid,
but so like I wanted to be a teacher. Then I got to high school and I started getting into like the arts and stuff, and I was like, oh, I could do like acting, stage plays and whatnot. But then like I was like, that takes a lot of work, and I haven't been training for it. For you to start that at like 16 is cool, but to make a career of it and you didn't really grow up in that area of like stage, I was like, And then I know that that's not really like where my passion is. Like, it's funny because we were just talking about how Hamilton just came out. And I was like,
Disney
one thing
Plus.
about Broadway, and I was like, I could not do the same show. Like, they perform that show 8 times a week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like I was like, that, I know I teach and that's repetitive, but I was like, no. So that died back down, and I got back into like, okay, because I was always, underneath all that still in my teaching prep classes and stuff in school. So, high school solidified that I wanted to do, middle school and high school solidified. I want to do middle school teacher. I'm excited. And then got to college, Kennesaw State, hoo go Owls. And I got 2 degrees. I'm going to point that out. 2 degrees.
You got 2?
Mastered that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Not like, okay, like two different levels. Not
I thought you
like
meant like no English than like science or something.
Well, at Kennesaw, when you go into middle grades, you have to choose 2 different subjects. So I'm certified in math and language arts, but I only chose language arts because I don't like, now that I think about it, I should have did science, but I didn't want to take the science classes, and I hate social studies. Like, oh my gosh. So I chose language arts, but I would never teach language arts.
I'm terrible at English. Like, I can talk and I'm articulate, but like putting stuff on paper, oh my god,
no, I can't.
It's the worst. It's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because I can't type. I can't, like, people read my tweets or they read what I write and they be like, what's wrong with this dude? But then I explain it and I say it in real life, they be like, oh, okay.
I can't do papers. Now, language arts teachers have a lot of leeway with stuff they could do. Like, they can make it really creative, but I can't do it. And math is where my heart is. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do math, and then going into my 4th year teaching this year. So
that's good. You do middle school, right?
7th grade.
So I feel like that's one of the most important parts of like especially like a young black kid's life, because like that's when I feel like that's when like you're the most malleable. Like that's when you're like, so when you're a kid, right? Everything's everywhere. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You're like, what is red? What is line? Like why do we drive places? Like, what is your church? Why do we go home? Like, why are you, And then like you slowly get older, and then like from that middle school to like high school, that little area right there, I feel like that's when you kind of like set yourself as a person. So I feel like when people be saying about not kids, but preteen, is that the right word? Adolescence?
Yeah.
What's the word? For like people like the age of like 10 to like 15.
Preteens, because, and they're in middle school, you're 11 to 14. So
yeah, like that age, I feel like that age is so critical that people really need to be structured, like not only in family but like in school, because like people really don't, like when people say, yeah, I'm 15 but I have like a 7th grade reading level, I'm like, dang, what happened in 7th grade, bruh?
and that's we're getting into that. That's like really the elementary school, but part of the reason that I wanted to do, because literally, and I don't know if I showed my boyfriend the other day, but I have a poem that I wrote in 8th grade about in the future being a 7th grade math teacher, which is crazy. But even though I went through a lot of struggles in high school as well, when I was in middle school, that's when you're changing, the heights of puberty, really trying to decide who you are. And, I just did a podcast with some of my former students and talking to them about, are you thinking about college already? And XYZ. So those middle years are so critical. That's why you kind of hear people talking about, like, if I tell people, okay, I teach 7th grade, they're like, oh my God, 7th graders are scary. Middle schoolers are scary because it's such a big time. So it was like, I know that was a big time for me. When I was in middle school, I was so bad. Like, my 6th grade year, I was a horrible child. I stayed in ISS, OSS, and I told my students this story, and they were like, you were mean like that. And then, some of my kids were like, I can see it. I was like, but I was so terrible and going through so many changes and so many things were going on. So like when I really wanted to think about what I wanted to teach, what level, I was like, okay, middle school, that's where I can have the most change. And that's where I can see the most. And then when you got your middle school teacher, you still have time for them to, grow. And I don't remember anything from middle school. Like, I don't remember anything I learned. I remember bits and pieces. I know I had teachers that, like, the teachers I liked, I remember their classes.
Yeah.
Like, I loved my 7th grade science teacher. She was real. And I remember so much from her class. But my other teachers, I didn't connect. I don't know anything from their class. I was like, I look at the stuff I teach, and I'm like, I learned this in 7th grade? That's weird. So another driving force of like, okay, I don't want kids to say, what did Miss Lovett's class even mean to me? Like when I got there. So I was like, I can have this change. I can be this change and be this person that's just awesome to them, and that they really retain something other than, oh, I had a cool teacher.
See, I agree with you a lot on the whole, I don't remember nothing. Like, I was like, do I know anything from 7th grade? Like, I still got some of my friends from 7th grade, but I don't remember anything from like middle school. Like, educational wise, I don't, what do you, like, what's that, algebra? Is that like, or was that like 8th grade math? What is it? I don't know. I don't remember anything, but
it's a mixture.
But I will admit, when I was younger, so like I wasn't like a fighter, or like I never stole or like broke nothing. I had a slick mouth. Like, I would say things. And
that's not a surprise.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. No. But like, no, but like I never got suspended for like slapping someone or fighting someone or punching or like I stole the teacher's whatever. I stole someone's, like, it never ever happened. But there were a couple of times my teacher would say something, I'd be like X, Y, and Z, and he'd be like, yeah, go to principal's office. I'd be like, God dang it, I did that. And like my mom would get the call and she'd be like, what do you say now? Like, because she already knew it. But my brother was the opposite though. He didn't really say stuff, but like he did stuff. Like,
that's funny.
But he was big though. Like, you gotta realize, like, he's 8th grade, 7th grade, and he was like 6 foot already. And so Jesus like Christ. Yeah, he got like my daddy's side of genetics, but he was and he played football too. So like, the whole anger issues or whatever. Like, I remember one time in high school, like I think he was like a freshman or something. Like, he slapped this dude's hand and like all his food fell on the floor. And like I'm just like, bro, like, and he'd be like, yeah, I know I shouldn't have done that. Like, it was really stupid, but like.
See, I do not have that many issues with kids getting smart with me. Like, my students, they don't really try me, probably because I set that precedent from day. I have the biggest issue with kids. They're talkative. Like, my students are so talkative and they get too comfortable around me. So I have to reel it back there. Like, you can't do anything in my classroom. Like, just, whatever you want to do. But I don't have a lot of the disrespect issue. And I taught in like a rough school my first 2 years, and some of the stuff other teachers would tell me that the kids would say to them, I'd be like, you let them talk to you like that? I mean, that's on you at that point, because they wouldn't do that. And then the couple of times that somebody might have come into my classroom and been like, oh, smarting off, the other kids would check it for me. They'll be like, hold on, I don't know what you thought, but. So
like, is your classroom mixed with, is it just black kids, or is it like, or is it majority black kids, or is it like half and half, or is it like mix of Latinos and?
I used to be in predominantly black, but now where I'm at, it's everything.
It's a good mix.
Mostly black and Hispanic where I'm at, but then I have students from Russia, I have students from Albania, I have a student from Egypt. You know what I'm saying? It's
So like my biggest thing is like in the classroom, right? If you got kids from different cultures and different backgrounds, like how do you get them to be cohesive because I know when I was younger, so we went to a private school, me and my brother, like and people might think I'm elitist or upper echelon, whatever. I think private school is the way to go. Okay, don't do that. You're a hater.
There's a lot of trees outside.
And I know private schools are expensive, but like I really do think they set the precedents to like be better. Like not saying be better like a human being, but like the education. Like right when I got to college. And they'd be like, yeah, you got to write a 3-page paper. And I was writing that as a freshman. I was like, 3 pages ain't. I could write a 3-page paper on how to write a 3-page paper. Like, and then my friends, they'll be complaining about it. I'm like, you're complaining about it? I was like, bruh. Like when I was a sophomore in high school, we wrote a 12-page research paper at Mr. Hutchison. I remember it was the worst thing in my life. It was the worst thing in my life. So when but back to the whole like diversity thing, most of my friends in high school were like a bunch of white kids.
Right.
I mean, of course, you had like the few black people in there who were, kind of like you or whatever. But it was really just like me and my brother, like even when we were in elementary school, like literally in elementary school, we were like the only 2 black kids. Like, I mean, like literally the only 2 black kids. Like people can't really concept that. Like, can you imagine going to middle school and you're like, I'm talking about like me and you, that's it. Everybody else is white. Maybe a couple Asian people. So like, how do you get all the different cultures and backgrounds, one dad, mom and dad, one mom, like how do you get that to stick?
So I really don't have to do much by the time they get to me, you know what I'm saying? Because I won't say where I teach, but where it's at is already like a big place for different cultures. So these are the kids that they've been with since elementary school and whatnot. So when they get to 7th grade, it's already, everybody's just like, oh, that's just my friend. Like I have one student from this past year, and he's this cute little white boy. Like I love him. Okay, not calling him cute like that because I'm a teacher. It's like cute in an appropriate way. But like, and I love him. And I was looking. We have students who are English as a second language, ESOL kids, and he was on the list. And he's German, and he spoke German when he first got to my county. And one of my kids were like, yeah, we taught him how to speak English. We helped him with that. And I was like, oh, y'all just kind of mixed. And they're like, yeah, we're all. So, they come in, and of course there's like the cultural differences at first. And I guess that is where I step in, because if there are students who are newer and trying to
1 or 2 years in,
assimilate, I don't know, I guess use the word, I kind of have to
that's
be,
the right word. Assimilate.
Like I had to. Well, I hate like saying like when we talked about assimilation, like in social
well, it
studies,
means like to be collective in the culture.
Yeah, and then it's so like when we talked about it, it always some of history has like a negative connotation. Get into that, but either way, so like this past year, I had a kid in the classroom, and they're just talking and playing around, and one of my black kids yelled to one of the Hispanic kids. He was like, well, you're a beaner.
Oh, my gosh.
But he didn't know.
That was me.
He didn't know. Oh, my gosh. He didn't know that it was negative.
Because they see it on TV.
Until I had to tell him. I was like, we don't do that. Like, I have to nip that in the bud. It's not even a gray area. And I immediately emailed the assistant principal, like, hey, you need to get him. And he called him up, because I was like, kids have to see that stuff is not okay. And then I had another, like, the kid I was talking about, he's from Egypt, but he's a white Egyptian, and he was in class one day.
Like Arab, like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was in class one day not telling me, but they talk so loud, and their group was right in front of my desk, and he was talking about how he has an N-word pass. And I was like, who gave you that? Because I wish you might. I don't want to hear anybody saying it in the classroom at all. But this is what we're not doing. So I really have to, in these instances, we're talking about culture. It's so many stories. I had a boy, and then kids know in my classroom, it's probably not appropriate if my principal ever hears this, it's all love. But in my classroom, if you try to bully others, now you got to deal with me.
Yeah.
And I'm an adult, so automatically I'm the roast queen. Now with my friends, not so much, but with kids, I'm gonna kill you, because
It's not cool.
It's not cool. And I see your work that you give me. So you don't have any room to talk about anybody. So I have a boy, he was from
How
Brazil.
you roasting to make a 55 on your test?
Honestly, I don't call out like specifics, but I will tell them, because the boy's he's Portuguese, and he's talking and trying to answer stuff. He has a thick accent because he just got to America less than 6 months ago when this happened. So, but he was right. And the kids were like, and I was like, I know you're not laughing because you're trying to understand him, when I try not to laugh because I struggle to understand some of this work you give me. And they were like, dang. But when we talk about all these differences that people have, I'm not for trying to laugh or trying to talk about people's culture. That was a big thing when COVID hit, before we closed down. Of course, with it originating in an Asian country.
Yeah, China.
All of my Asian students were kind of becoming targets. Yeah. And they laughed it off because they were jokes amongst each other. But I was like, I don't want to hear it. So it's all about, as a teacher, I got to nip things in the bud. I got to teach and appreciate. If a kid wants to do something, like I have a kid who's from China, and he made me a Chinese ornament for Christmas. And it's still hanging in my classroom today because I want to celebrate that. They were like, why is that hanging? I said, because he wanted to bring some of his culture in the classroom. It's not hurting you. Yeah. It's just there. Like, relax.
So you think that not really forcing it, but getting your kids to understand, like, hey, like yeah, y'all are all the same age, but this guy's from Germany, this guy's from Egypt, one's from Portugal, one's from China. Like, you're American. You're also American, but you're first generation from, wherever you're from. So you think that a good way for them to, be in the classroom is to, like, really just to get them to learn each other's cultures? Like, is that what you would, because you said the boy with the Chinese ornament, like, do you think, like, that maybe you should get them to speak on, like, where they're from and, like, what they be doing? Because I do that all the time with my white friends and the Black culture.
Yeah, as long as it's not taken away from, like, instructional points. Like, if we're in the middle of a lesson, I'm not gonna say, okay, now you tell me about. Of course not. But I think if there's an opportunity for a culture to be for us to learn and be educated on something, or if I have time to celebrate, like if it's Hispanic Heritage Month, trying more to celebrate that and let people see their culture, or Chinese New Year. I don't really know when that falls for sure, but if
it's not on actual New Year's.
Yeah, so like it's different. So if I'm celebrating these different things and people see it, then the students know it's okay. Because in my classroom, the students are basing everything off me. So if I push things to the side, students are going to push things to the side. If I laugh at you, the students are going to laugh at you. So.
And like the whole beaner thing, like they really get that from TV. Like most kids that around that age, because 7th grade is like what, like 12, right? It's like 12, 13?
Well, in that instance, it was just kind of like how Black people call each other the N-word. You heard like the Hispanics, they call each other like beaners all the time. And, I have to be like, stop. Because I'm like, people hear that. And if you don't want anybody else to say it to you, stop normalizing it within yourselves, because students aren't recognizing that it's just y'all. He's not picking up the fact that it's just the Hispanic students, because, some...
It's like they see, they do.
Yeah, so some people, some students would put it together like, oh, that's clearly the one kid who is Hispanic talking to the other kids Hispanic. It must be a them thing. But that particular student is kind of slow to the draw, just honest. So he didn't notice it. So when something happened, he just thought it was okay to yell out. And I was like, no. That's actually... Because
I was the same way when I was younger. Because when I was younger, like it was mostly white kids, a couple like Hispanics. And it was like me and my brother. So like I would, like naturally just chill with the Hispanics. And they would be speaking Spanish. Like, I don't know if they were like, I don't know if they just got here or whatever, but I do know a lot of Hispanics or like mainly Mexicans, like they speak like Spanish as like bilingual. Like they know English just as good they know Spanish. But I guess, how like people from different cultures, they don't want people to know what they're talking about. So they speak in a different tongue, right? Like you got, the Nigerians here, like they'll speak, Yoruba or like Igbo or whatever, right? So I guess when they were younger, they would do that all the time. But I was trying to learn it to hang out with them. But my teacher, I don't know if it's like a white thing or she was being racist, but she didn't want me to do that. Like she was like, you can't speak Spanish. And I was like, why not? I was like, well, like I'm not being, am I being rude? And they would be like, no, he's chilling. Like we like him. There was like, I don't know what the issue is, but she literally would not let me learn to speak Spanish. And like this went on but I don't know if my mom transferred schools because of that, but we ended up transferring schools. Like, and I never saw them again. But this was literally like when I was like in 2nd or 3rd grade. And I was literally trying to learn, like, I'm talking about being fluent in it. Because every time we hung out for lunch or recess or whatever, they would just be teaching me stuff. They were like, yo, hola, como está? Like all this, like, you know, pollo is chicken, like everything, right? No, I'm so serious. Like I thought it was like, I swear I was on my way to be bilingual. And then, you know, transfer schools, and there was like no, you know, Latin kids there or anything like that, or Hispanic kids. And I just never learned Spanish again until high school.
I mean, it's definitely a comfort thing because a lot of these students struggle with English still. A lot of my students, because, and my capstone for my master's degree was on being bilingual or multilingual even in a school. If I can speak, so if we're in a Spanish speaking or another speaking country and we're learning that language, but then I meet somebody who also speaks English, my go-to with them is going to be English because that's where I'm most comfortable. But then, you know, because I think kids were in a bind in my class because I know Spanish. Mm-hmm. So,
oh, you know Spanish?
Yes, my Hispanic students would be speaking in Spanish and they say something, and I'd look. They were like, "Oh my God, you idiot! You know she speaks Spanish too. She knows what you're saying." And I'm like, tone it down because we're not gonna do that. But it's more of like a comfort thing. And in your case, you know, your friends were like, okay, yeah, we want to teach him so he can learn, because most of the time it's not. Now, sometimes, you know, it is kind of shady. And that's with
it could have been shady. Like, I literally, I mean, because second grade is like, what, like 7 or 8, 9, right? Like, I really didn't know. Like, I was like, these are my friends. Right. This is what my friends are doing. Why can't I do what my friends are doing?
And so I think the only thing I've ran into that is if I can tell my students are getting annoyed, because you have Spanish speakers and then you have the foreign language classes like Spanish, German, French, and whatnot. And sometimes, you know, the kids will go in Spanish class and then come back to their Hispanic classmates and it's like, oh, hey, look what I know. But it's always that one annoying kid.
Yeah. Who's extra.
Who's extra, and they're kind of like, okay, and you got to kind of pick up on those nonverbal cues or like the body language or how they're saying things. But in my case, it was just a lot of that was their comfort zone was speaking in Spanish because they hear English all day and go home back to Spanish.
Yeah, that's how most
literally 90% of my Spanish speaking students. My students from Russia, Albania, Egypt, from all over the world, my Brazilian student, they go home and speak their native tongue. So when they can find somebody in the school that speaks that same native tongue, it's just that easier as opposed to trying to be like, okay, like somebody just posted the Sofia Vergara meme from Modern Family. Yeah. Like, do you know what it's like to have to translate everything in your head before you speak, and somebody's still telling you that it's broken? You know, when you're trying to speak in English but the sentence structure isn't right, subject verb agreement isn't there, so it's easier. Now I'm not gonna do this language that's not comfortable to me with people who can understand me in my native tongue.
Facts.
Just like the only thing that I don't see my Asian kids really speaking to one another in, you know, whether it be Cantonese, Mandarin,
they're
Japanese,
really good. They're really good about it, because at my high school, like we had a very, very big, well, not very big, but we had like a good sized Asian population, and they're mostly Vietnamese. Like they were very, like, not saying very good, but like they never spoke their tongue around us, like, ever.
But I think it's because it's not like Spanish and French. Those are more of the Romance languages. Yeah. So when you hear that, you're still people are gonna be rude and say stuff. People always have something to say. But imagine walking down the hallway and now somebody's speaking Mandarin or Japanese. People are not gonna respond to that the same way as they would if you're speaking French with your friend in the hallway. And I think that's a lot to do with it as well.
I don't like that, because like, and this kind of ties into, you know, one of the more serious things that I want to talk about. Like, I don't really care if you know a different language, because like, if I go to China, right, like I'm planning on living in Japan, or at least going to Japan for a period of time. And I don't expect to look around and see English speaking people, or, you know, like I'm going to Japan, more than likely 99% +% of the country speaks Japanese. Like, I'm not gonna feel that type of way that no one speaks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't like when people get upset. Why are you speaking this language in front? Why would you do this? I'm like, bro, who cares? Like, is it really making you that upset? It's like, why are you being racist? Okay, yeah, why are you being racist? Why are you being racist?
Well, yeah, you don't feel that way, but the issue is the majority of others do.
Who cares?
So
Who cares?
if you're so used to being put down about something normal to you, start to change. And then I think, again, too, we know the stereotype about Asian culture. And I think, I don't really know how to say, I think that becomes more normal to them as they learn the English. Mm-hmm. That's like one of their challenges to conquer. And now I know it because, that's what centers them is like a lot of intelligence and a lot of mastery of certain crafts. So I think it's kind of like we learn the language now. If we can use it, we're going to use it.
I just feel like, do your kids know about what's going on?
I don't know.
Like, you haven't had to talk with them about the, like, because I mean, we know what's up. Like, we're grown, so. Like,
on my last podcast when I talk with my students, they know. They're in ninth grade now. My former students that I
but they're high school
with, they're in ninth grade. Students these days, they have some. When I was in school, I did not have access to the technology that students these days do. So they see everything. They literally, I had a student pass away last year, and pictures of her car accident were all over Snapchat within like the hour. So they get information and disseminate information so quickly. So there's no way not to know about rioting and protesting and everything that's going on. It's just a means of processing it, because I posed that question to some of my fellow staff members. I was like, what are we going to do when we get back? And it kind of became a race thing at first. Somebody was kind of like, well, what can I do if I'm this white man who da-da-da? And I was like,
it's not about that.
I'm not even thinking about my little black kids right now, because I have students who literally fled war-torn countries and came to Georgia. And imagine what that's like, seeing like this same destruction and ruin in the streets when that's something your family just tried to get you away from. Yeah. That can be very triggering in a time where you've been stuck in the house for 3 months already.
Plus.
And then now, right, we're on what? I left school. We did not come back. March 12th was our last day because the 13th was a holiday for us. A lot of different counties went back on the 13th. We did not. So some of these students' last day with their friends was March 12th. It's July 5th. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then all of this change is going on in the world. A lot of people who already didn't understand American culture and
even more confused. They don't know what's going on.
Don't know what's going on top of, again, in a pandemic, can't really express. A lot of my students don't have ideal home situations, but they still see it. I think the only kids who are really in the dark are those who have no technology, but which is like little to none, because they had to get on technology to participate in classes before we let out in May. So it's something that's weird to address, because the type of black students I have now are not like the type of black students I had my first 2 years. So it's a different approach. My kids now are just, honestly, they're a lot softer, because there's at every school you can find a handful of students that are living through some really rough things. But that population here is smaller than what I had there. So what they're seeing might really be a total 180 than what they're used to, or they might be used to it. But this is definitely a more delicate approach to it. If I was at my old school, I could just kind of go in and be like, yo, what in the world? But here I have to think about everybody in my classroom and make sure that I'm addressing how everyone feels.
Yeah, I think it should be a group talk, like even with immigrants that come, and I've been just the minority immigrants. I mean, like the ones like you said you had one from Germany, and you said you got a white boy from Egypt. So I feel like it should be a talk about everyone, because like so when people talk about racism reform, right, or how do we fix racism in America, and everyone knows, defund the police and give the money to X, Y, and Z, right? Or everyone be like, elect the people that we want to elect, or get Donald Trump out. Like, those are the common sense things that people know. Like, a cop shouldn't kill an innocent black man. Cool, we know that. All right, cool. Give them better training. Bet. We should elect X, Y, and Z because the other guy's racist. Cool, we know that. So what do you think about the educational aspect of fixing the racism? Because I know personally, I don't feel like I felt it as much as I did when I was younger, but I probably did experience some racist stuff when I didn't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Like there was probably a teacher who said some slick stuff and I was like, yeah, you're right. And I didn't know what she was saying really. So what do you think about the educational, like what can we do as normal people who aren't even in the system, or like what do you think should be done in the system to fix the racist aspects?
Teachers have to stop being afraid to have questions. I mean, not questions, conversations. I remember, like I said, I asked in my staff Facebook group, like, what are we doing when you all come back? And one of the first things one of my coworkers said was, oh, I had a cousin that was, he's white. He was like, my cousin was killed by the Capitol Police 15 years ago. And then again, I'm also this tall white man. Okay, but you're one of the most meaningful conversations they're going to have. Because you're not even black. You're not even a minority, but you're showing you care. That's the problem. Because I can go blue in the face. I can't. I'm really dark skinned, so I really can't go blue in the face. But I can talk and talk and talk, but it's still going to become like, oh, well, you're just as passionate because you're black and you don't think about black people. But when everybody else is having these conversations and thinking about what can I do for change and how can I talk and how can I enlighten to what's really going on, then it means more. Because right now, everybody's just having arguments and counter arguments. There's no discussion. There's no learning. There's, oh, well, you feel this way, but this is how I feel, or avoidance in general. A lot of teachers are like, oh, this is messy and I don't really want to bring this up. Is this my place? But it's everybody's place.
Yeah, you need to, and not to cut you off or anything, but I feel like one of the most annoying things is, and it kind of happened at the cookout, when you ask nicely, no one talks to you, no one listens to you. You'd be like, hey guys, like we should do this. No one says anything. Okay, guys, like, can we do this? Okay, but now when you cussing and yelling, you're raising your voice and your hands going everywhere and you flip over a table, whoa, why are you tripping? Because I'll be that nigga right now if you really want me to, like dead ass. Like because like ain't no one listening to me. Like you're not doing nothing. Like I was being nice. I was trying to talk nice. Let's have this conversation. Like even with the, like, right? Like you said you were talking to your teachers or the other, and they's like, well, I don't know if we should. But I bet you if you went to school raising hell, they'd be like, okay, like what's your issue? I didn't have an issue. I've been talking to you for 3 months about how can we address this in our school, and you're not doing nothing. But when I come in out like a nigga, suddenly is why are you doing this? Why are you tripping?
And that's the biggest thing, because when you take that lighter approach, sometimes people just kind of tiptoe over like, oh, it'll go away. But then what happens when you have a student who faced something, who might have been in the car with their dad and got pulled over, and it turned really crazy really fast because of the color of their skin? Again, not just my young black students, even though that's still their skin tone is black. Other people get treated really crappy because you want to make it a black and white thing, but people are talking about, and I know that we have issues with other groups of color because black people feel like we don't get support. But again, from my standpoint, I have to think about everybody, because I don't just teach black students.
Teach everybody.
And we're not having this conversation about what's really going on in the world, but now I have this Hispanic students that's dealing with this racism, and we're trying to sweep it under the rug. But call it what it is, call a spade, and have that conversation, and have those conversations like, we're doing all this planning about how we're going to return back with COVID and how we're going to help that. But coronavirus is not the only thing we're dealing with right now. Yeah. Because these riots and whatnot are not really slowing down. They're not getting as much coverage.
Yeah, nowhere near.
But stuff is not slowing down. We still have months until the election. And who knows what'll happen if Donald Trump gets reelected. You know what I'm saying? So we want to tiptoe. We don't want to talk about it. But it's kind of like, oh, because we feel like this only represents this one population in our school. And then when you get into that conversation as well, it's like, okay, it only represents this one population. So now we're just going to ignore that because it doesn't affect me. I don't want to talk about it. But now we have these students that are struggling, and their friends don't know how to deal with their friends who are struggling with stuff because nobody wants to teach them about it. My white students don't know how to comfort their friend. They hear their parents talking about how Black Lives Matter is some BS. So when they hear their friends talking about I feel unsafe, they're brushing it off. So now you have adults ignoring in the building, trickling down to students getting in arguments and fights because they're saying something like, when Obama got elected, it was about to be World War II. in a middle school because people were saying some really ignorant things, and the teachers wanted to tiptoe around it and not really dig into it because students aren't mature. Do they know what students get into these days?
Boy.
So it's more so on our end, like, stop ignoring it. Find a way that you address everybody and get to everybody, but you can't just sweep it under the rug. Because if my students ask me about it, I'm not going to be like, oh, we don't have time to talk about that. I'm going to be real and tell how I feel.
Yeah.
Because if I don't talk to you about it, if I'm ignoring it, and I'm a black woman at that, then they're definitely going to be like, well, this is nothing. So it's just, you know.
See, I encourage I'm one, I don't know if I'm one of the few or many or whatever. I encourage black women to go off. Like, it may be awkward for me in that moment, but I've seen it plenty of times where, like, it's slowly built up over time. Like, even in a restaurant, right? There's a stereotypical, you know, you sit at the restaurant and then your mama go off, right? And then it's like, whoa, what happened there? But then I started to peep the stuff that would happen, like, when we're out in a big restaurant. And don't get me wrong, some things are accidents. I get it. But there are a lot of times, and I feel like this probably plays into bigger life, where black women, right? Mainly, I can't speak on white women because I don't know, or Asian women or whatever. But it's times where, like, when my mom will ask for something or do something, and the waiter would be like, okay, I got you, and just never do it. Or the server would be like, yeah, I got you, and just never do it. And she's like, okay, this is my third time asking. And then it's like, when she's going off and being, you know, where she from, it's like, ma'am, like, can you, whoa, like, what? Like, I'm sorry. Like, it was an accident. It's like, no, now you want to hear me. When I'm like, what did Kiki Palmer say on that podcast? When she was like, I'll be that B and just turn up in this thing. Cause like, when you don't hear me when I'm talking, it's cool. But when I'm turning up, it's the worst thing ever. So I encourage black women to turn up to 100, like, instantly. Turn up to 100. Cause even, like, people will hear me because, like, I'm a black dude, I'm swole, like, you know, I got a deep voice or whatever. They be like, oh yeah, okay, well, what this guy's saying, like, let's, you know, we're cool. Because to me, it's wild that Breonna Taylor's killers aren't being arrested. Like how you got one dude fired, that's it. And then there was recently just this case I saw on Twitter where the exact same thing happened, but it was a white woman that died, and all of those cops in that department got sent to jail. I don't know for how long. I didn't read that much, but I just read if they got convicted or not. I just want to know, because I just wanted to see if they didn't get convicted, I'd be like, dang, maybe it's a deeper issue than just, you know, that one case. But I was like, if they got convicted, how did Breonna Taylor's not get convicted? So I encourage black women to turn up to 1,000, like, off rip. And I was even trying to get some black women to lead the protest in Kennesaw that I was doing a few times. And I'm still trying to plan another one, but, you know, the weather's not going good for us. But back to what we were saying, like, I think, like, whenever I see a black woman going off, or like on Twitter she yelling at some dude, like, the first thing I think is like, dang, like, what did he do? Or like, what happened to lead up to the situation? Because most black women I know just not gonna go off for no reason. Right. Like, you're not just finna pull up to some dude's house or do a protest for no reason, or go on this big rant on Twitter for no reason because you woke up mad.
Right.
Most black women not finna do that. There might be some, and, you know, that's their own case, but you got people out here who invalidated black women, like the women's march, right? That was organized by black women,
right?
But yet, not in it was coverage by white women. Like, it made it seem like white women did it. Nah, it was an elderly black woman on Twitter, on Facebook, who had the idea. She made a group and it went viral and worldwide. But yet, many people don't even know that. You get what I'm saying? So I think y'all should turn them to 1,000.
And, you know, but that just goes along with the whole teaching aspect. I'm a loud person, but I don't yell. Yeah. You know, I don't yell at my students. I don't particularly take into that. The only time I really snap and get really loud is when I've had enough. So just that echoing. And with my own passion, you know, of course my new kids don't know, but I'm over here like looking at this picture. The day Kobe died, that next day at school, I cried at school from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Like, I was an emotional wreck. And I feel as though my own self, like, I cannot be crying over somebody that I've never met and how much that impacted me, and then brush under the rug something that is affecting myself and my community. And I'm seeing a lot of, like, my white, quote unquote, friends on Facebook and whatnot. And the dumbest argument to me that I always see is like, well, cops kill white people too. So shouldn't you just be just as mad? Like,
yeah, I hate that because it's like, okay, if you don't think that, like, if you don't think that someone in your community, right, even scratch black, white, Asian, whatever, Muslim, if you don't think that someone in your community should have died from this instance, who is stopping you from protesting? No one. Like there's this Republican on Twitter. His name is Matt Walsh, and he posted this video of this white boy in the hotel. He had it was like some really big incident. It was like years ago, and the police shot him when he was unarmed. Mm-hmm. And like the first thing I thought was like, well, damn, Matt, protest. Like what? What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And like it's always been people who post the videos or who make that one point who never apply to anyone with logic that can contend them. Because like you're saying, right? Your white friend's like, well, yeah, like white people do all the time. Like, well, yeah.
Like do something about we're upset about that too. And what's crazy to me is, and I did not make this Facebook status, but my thing is too, they're like, oh, everybody brings up, so what are you doing about black on black crime? And my thing is, have y'all never seen All American? Did nobody see what Spencer was trying to do when his neighborhood was going? Like, communities rise up when this stuff is happening, when stuff gets crazy. But there's also a bit of fear. And, I've lived in Caucasian areas my whole life, so I can't really speak too much to that. But communities definitely start to try to make a change too. This is something that we're seeing nationally. Mm-hmm. And globally. Something that, globally, because it wasn't just us. People were talking about racism in the UK, racism in Latin American countries that were all coming up. So it's worldwide that we're speaking for something that we're seeing is a problem. And if you see that's your problem as well, and I love the little analogies everybody's coming up with, because I ask people who have multiple children, if your child, like, as a matter of fact, my niece got in a car accident last night. Mm-hmm. I didn't call my niece and say, oh, but what about your siblings? Are they okay? Did you, how are they taking, did you know your siblings? And two of her siblings were in the car with her. The other one was in a different car. I said, I know that you're hurt, but like,
are they fine?
What about them too? Like, cause they matter as well. That's like understood.
Yeah.
But the focus is right now, she had the brunt of everything that was going on. I'm not going to say, oh, I know you hurt yourself, but don't forget your brothers and sister get hurt sometimes too. Mm-hmm. What? Who even does that? I'm telling you that I'm hurting. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I had an asthma attack. Well, why didn't you have your inhaler? Because other asthma people bring their inhalers with them. Dummy. What? This is what you're going to say to me, right? Am I okay? Like, it's a lot of things that people are doing. And it's like, are you serious? Did anybody see? I randomly woke up and checked Twitter like 6 o'clock this morning. And some dude posted the video. Did you see the 2 protesters got ran over?
Yeah.
Last night? And the
Asian guy, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
Were disgusting. And it was
they were
so
ignoring
bad.
the fact that, like, someone was like, dude, I live in Seattle. He was like, that highway's been shut down for like the past 2 weeks. He's like, if someone hit someone on the highway, it's because someone went out there purposely to hit someone on that highway. Because he's like, you would have to go past like 3, like the little gate things they put in front, like when they.
He was going the wrong way anyway.
Yeah, and then they said that he was going like the literally opposite direction. So that's like literally driving on the left side of 75 north. It's like you can't do that. If you drive on the left side, like you're going like everyone else is going down, you're going up. Like you can't do that. And I just recently had this conversation with one of my really close friends, Bokery. Shout out to Bo, my man, since high school. But the whole black on black crime thing, right? And I don't think people can realize this. They're not mutually exclusive. Like, I can be worried about black on black crime or whatever, like crime in my community, and also think like, hey, you're a cop and you shouldn't kill us, right? Because this is the example that I be using against my more Republican friends. I'm like, dude, if you slap your brother and I slap you, your brother's gonna kick my ass, and it can happen simultaneously. Like right now, right? If you slap your boyfriend Mars right now, right, and then I slap you, I guarantee you he's gonna slap the shit out of me. Now he might yell at you later in the car and be like, "Why'd you slap me, girl? What's wrong with you? You slap me again like that in public, I'm gonna get on you." You know what I'm saying? But I guarantee you, and this can happen within 5 seconds of each other. I'm literally talking about 5 seconds. You can literally slap him, and then I'll slap the shit out of you, and he'll be like, "Bruh, me and you might gotta go outside the box." But do you get what I'm saying though? But you get what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah.
I can literally think that black on black crime is not a good thing, and yes, we can address the murder situations in Chicago, Baltimore, all that. We can do that, but cops shouldn't be killing us. We shouldn't be dealing with racism in the healthcare, racism in the education system. Like one wrong doesn't make another wrong invalid.
Right.
And I don't think Republicans, and even myself recently, like I've started to, because I was always confused on the subject, because I was like, dang, like what is a good response to that? And this is the answer that I came up with myself talking to my friend Bokery. Because I was like, you know what? I was like, I can think that, we shouldn't kill each other and like we shouldn't do this. But no black person has killed a black person because they're black. Like, or fought someone because they're black. Like, you step on my J's in the club, it's like, dude, that's disrespect in the South. Like, don't do that. You feel me?
Right.
But at the same time, though, if you step on my J's in the club and I swing on you and then I go outside and the cop shoots me in the back, best believe that same dude I just swung on is probably going to protest for me if I die.
Right.
And then also at the same time, though, I read a recent statistic. Crime has gone down in the black community in the past like 3 months because of all the protests. Because no one's been really doing anything, and it could be related because of COVID. I don't know. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but it was and I gotta find it. And if I find it, I'm gonna send it to you. But literally, they were saying like crime has dropped like 3 times the normal rate in our community because of all the protests and maybe COVID.
So it's because like we spending so much time coming together to protest because a lot of the crime that happens in black communities is a lot of like beefs and stuff that people feel has to be settled with violence instead of other avenues. Again, I don't really touch on that much because again, grew up in a lot of Caucasian areas, so I didn't really see a lot of that. And then also crime, a lot of crime happens like with break-ins and whatnot. It's only a few that are really bold to come after you while you're in the house. Yeah. People aren't leaving their house at night, so the break-in aspect of different houses has dropped because people are home. We're not going anywhere because you couldn't go anywhere. And then people who have these nicer places also not going to go anywhere. They tend to be older. Like my parents have a very nice house. Where are they going at 10 o'clock at night? Nowhere. They're not going nowhere until 10 o'clock in the morning.
Bed with the bonnet on.
Right. So it's a lot of stuff had to change when all this hit. And then when the protest started, it's kind of like our communities are like, yeah, I hate you, but we have a bigger hatred for the way the system is consistently taking us down and taking down other people that cannot stand for themselves that well against us. And looping it back into education, these are all of the things that I try to talk to my students about and talk to,
do you think y'all need more funding?
John, education, do we need more funding? Yes. What? It's a no-brainer. Not even just, listen, on the down end, I don't know if anybody caught like what I said. Like literally, so many people have been helping me with my classroom this year. I'm going into my 4th year teaching, and all 3 years I have spent at minimum like $1,000 over time on my classroom. So
what do you think that we can do? Like I'm just a normal dude. Like I'm kind of smart, but that's about it. And I take pictures. I'm good with numbers. So what can like me as like a normal guy, like what can we do besides like directly giving you money? Because I don't feel like that's the solution.
I was sure about to say you could cash at me, but it was a joke.
But okay. I mean, yes, like I could give you direct money, but like what is like the real solution? Because like, you don't put you can put a Band-Aid on a dash, like on a stab wound, but like that's not really a solution. Like the solution is stitch it up and you fix it. It's
it's just supporting education. If a teacher is seeking resources, again, that ties into how when people ask for information, a lot of people are very nasty about it, You're grown, you know how to use Google. Yeah, but if I really want in-depth, like tell me about your experience. Why when I'm asking about your experience and how you feel and your journey, it has to be such a nasty thing. And that turns a lot of people away because your message, and again, I just talked about this the other day. As a teacher, if I'm introducing myself, if I'm starting off, the reason I have such a good rapport with students is because I'm a respectful person. I don't go there unless you take me there. But imagine if on the first day of school, I'm like, okay, I I'm Miss Lovett, and I really ain't got time for no stupidity. I know that you haven't learned anything that I have to teach yet, but I just feel like you should do a little bit on your own. And then don't ask me no stupid question. I mean, I do tell kids don't ask me questions that I've already said the answer to in some form, but that's more understandable than me just being like, Ricky, that was such a dumb question. Why would you ever open your mouth to ask me that? I hate you. You suck. That's why you're failing. What?
Jesus
like,
Christ.
And that's how some people on Twitter, on Facebook, all these white people trying to be allies, and you
so
want
dumb.
me to tell you, but you know how to Google. You can read about Kid Rock and Garth Brooks, but when we talking about Black Lives Matter, you want to ask me. Just tell them to read something that you like. Share with them the in-depth stuff, because I know that we're frustrated. And some people are acting like black people just popped out of thin air. But people who are trying to change their mindsets need some guidance. And I know you're frustrated, but save the frustration and argumentative for people who are really being about that.
Stuck.
But somebody who's really trying to come to you, because now it's like, okay, no, I don't care. Because that's what I am to some of the people that I see now. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. There are people that I used to know that I see them in public. There are people, some people that I saw at your cookout that I looked the other way when they saw me, because like the way they've been addressing everything going on, I'm just like, ew, no. So it's like when somebody reaches out to you, you know what I'm saying? And I needs that information, like talk to them. If you have a teacher in your life, like uplift them with positivity. I have a lot of people that give me props for being a teacher. I don't get a lot of negativity when it comes to being a teacher from my friends and whatnot.
Just as important as like a doctor.
But we're about to go into a lot. A lot of schools are going back face to face right now, especially in Georgia right now. All these other states are closing back down. I don't really see that happening for Georgia's becoming a survival of the fittest state. So with teachers as well as the other essential workers, they're going back in, to COVID, going back in to having to adjust. We might have traumatized students for going in. So it's really just that support aspect, you know? And it's hard because there's not many ways you can get into the school system because we're so like enclosed in a little bubble too, you know? But if you see an opportunity to like help a school in a positive way, you know, help be a lending hand, help a teacher. If you see these resources for a teacher, or for teachers trying to get like more black books in their classroom, or more Hispanic Latino books,
Google it.
You know, like support that cause, support different causes with school. Google it is just, and you know me, I'm a Google it type person on like some funny stuff. Like, don't get on and be like, what's the definition of XYZ? Because as much as you took to tweet that, you could have opened Safari or whatever. But it's just kind of just stop being so anti everything and just being so negative. We're all fed up in our own different ways, but the way you carry yourself out is how you get your message further and how you get across. Unless people been ignoring you. Like you said, some people just go off when it's been enough. That's different. But some people just nasty just to be nasty, and I can't get down with that ever.
I think like people, and then I feel like when people are asking like, what do you want me to do? Like, no one's saying, bro, write a 10-page essay with the MLA format and I need 8 citations. Like, no one's saying that, bro. Like, literally just tell someone about a YouTube video or a book that you read, or even like an author. Like, no one is saying, bro, go into the deepest, darkest, like the most in-depth review you can possibly do on racism in America and give me a 10-page. Like, no, bro, no. Like, if someone's asking you, bro, just be like, yo, I read this article, boom, link them to this article, and just be like, yo, bro, find more articles like this. And most people, I would hope, would be like, all right, bro, I got you. Like, I don't think most people are going to be like, well, I don't know what, like, if someone's like, yo, like, what video should I watch? You should be like, boom, watch this video by this person. And then usually YouTube does an algorithm and just finds videos kind of similar to it. Sure. Like, you can literally do that, and that person will, because most videos will have like, yo, the link is below from the book I read, and you can read the book and then you just go from there. Like, bro, and if our leaders from like the 60s and 50s and 30s had our logic, we would be nowhere. Like, can you imagine if Malcolm X used to literally go on every single interview he possibly could to get his point across? And I don't think people realize that at the same time, your enemy, right, quote unquote, your oppressor or whatever, will do what you're not willing to do. Every Republican, racist, KKK member will go to on any interview, will go on any YouTube video, any channel, and get their point across with citations, videos, and everything that you could possibly think of to get people on their side. People who don't know what to do, they're stuck, or just little children who are malleable, who just don't know anything, and they can just be promoted to be racist. They will do everything, but you're over here saying Google it because you're tired. You'll get nowhere with that. Even in education, if you said, hey teacher, what's X, Y, and Z, or I don't know what this is, well, you have a calculator, you know what to do. Like, bruh, if you're
what I need you for.
Or imagine if the principal at your school was like, you were like, yo, principal, like X, Y, and Z, he'd be like, yeah, okay. Like you know the contract you signed. You know read it. And you would be like, read what? All right, bet.
Honestly? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it would get us nowhere. And it's kind of just frustrating because I get more frustrated at my own people than the people asking questions. Cause like if you're like, I'm a fit dude, right? If someone was like, yo, Devin, how do I get in shape? Nigga, you better YouTube how to do push-ups. Like, no, bro, go to gym 3 times a week, cut your calories by like a third, drink more water, see where you go from there. And then you take off, like, just give them 1 or 2 steps and they should be able to figure out the rest.
All right.
But yeah, we, anything that you want to talk about real quick?
Oh, no, because let me... You saw it. You saw the tweet. You see the tweets? Talking about he said he was going to own me about this whole cheating thing. Talking about teachers be cheating.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because
I'm about to take it there.
Okay, how can I get in trouble for cheating if I can find your test on Chegg? That is cheating.
First off, as you saw in that screenshot, though, the teacher asked, okay, it's on Chegg. Most teachers, when they see that their stuff is on Chegg, they report it or try to get it taken down. The issue is, as teachers, so when I plan, and I'm not collegiate level yet, maybe one day, but when we plan, I work with four other main 7th grade teachers.
Okay.
So when we plan, we make common assessments. Because if I'm trying to prove if my students are doing, that sounded bad. If we're trying to see who students are performing better or what to assess, if we have all these different tests, then that's an issue. And I think that's the same thing on a collegiate level. It's like this overarching department, like Science 1101 is universal. So if I have a Science 1101 test, it might be something that comes from the powers that be with university science. Now, some teachers I don't ever use the same test year to year because that's ridiculous. But some teachers, they're like, especially on the college level, if this test has worked for me to gauge whether these students are getting it, then they keep it. But like you said, stuff is on Chegg, Quizlet, everything. Like students take these tests and make these flashcards. Or you ever had a teacher that will give you a question in class and then you see that question pop back up on the test. Yeah. It might be a little different from you because private school can get more in the nitty gritty. Yeah. But like sometimes we might have something and then reword it because it might be a more difficult concept. Okay. And then when you go and do that, now that's up to you. Now again, like you said though, if you see your test is on Chegg, Quizlet, everything, you're still using it, you can't really complain about cheating because
it's cheating.
It's not cheating. It's not. But a lot of teachers use common resources, because we do a lot. And I don't know if y'all knew about the way we create assessments. We do not sit down and make all those questions from scratch.
So wait, are you saying that like when you say common, you said it's called common what?
We use common resources, like common planning, like.
So is it like, let's say, like you guys get it from like a general like department somewhere and they just give y'all the questions or something like that?
Sometimes we have like a question pool because when we make tests, it's not just our opinion. Mm-hmm. Our tests have to meet the rigor level of those above us. Because if they start looking at a test like this question is easy, you're a dumb teacher because why would you even test the kids like this? That doesn't assess anything. And now we're going back and trying to reinvent the wheel. So like the biggest thing, because again, it was only 280 characters. And then again, like you said with cheating, even though you can find it, you're the one being assessed. So it's like, okay, yeah, let me cut some corners on this. Oh, look. And I hope no teachers ever like, let me get this off Quizlet and download and transfer because that, and I have had questions because I'm not going to pretend like I've never looked something up in college, because do you know the type of stuff we have to go through? It's your fault you didn't put a lockdown browser. So, I mean, it's going to use my liberties. But if you take that, then that's different. But a lot of it is just a teacher had a resource, and you would think now that technology is more prevalent, teachers would be like, let me search my own test to make sure that
you can
it's
literally search
withstood the test of time. But some teachers just don't. They're really old, and then they just give you that same test, and now everything's on. You're wondering why everybody's getting like A's, and so you think you're a great teacher, but no. We just have Google, so it tells us everything. But yeah, talk about teachers be cheating. We go through a lot. Okay?
I'm not saying I love teachers. I think teachers next to cops are not cops, doctors are like the most important people. Like, if my arm is broken right now, I'm not finna be like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna hey, take me to Emory, greatest up, take me, somebody, please. And I feel like in order to be the doctor, in order to be the whatever you're trying to be, you have to have a teacher to teach you how to do it.
I mean, either way, all these people y'all see now, either they love their teachers in their classes and got to where they are, or they hated school so much that they left and still got to where they were. The way
that was me.
Were the influence.
I hated school so much. I was like, I need to graduate and just get up out of here. Like me disliking school helped me graduate.
But look, the teachers, they sucked, and you hated it. Still an influence.
Well, no, I've had some good teachers. I had some good teachers. I had some really crappy teachers. Like, I think if I had teachers like you, well, most of my teachers are white, so I don't know. But
I think that has a lot to do with your experience. But
yeah, but like if I had a fun teacher who,
there are some good white teachers out there. I don't want to
downplay
that, but
there's some
when that's
black
all
teachers.
You see, there are some crappy black teachers. When I see like schools that are just all white teachers, I'm like, what? Where is the difference? Because typically in that type of school, then just not all white teachers, they're all white teachers who think the same. Yeah. Same way if you had like just predominantly any type of staff. Staff needs diversity because the schools are diverse.
I think that's the issue. Dang, that's the issue with HBCUs. But I'm going to get someone from HBCU and we're going to have a podcast.
Oh, yeah, I'm not even touching on it. I went to PWI. I was going to say it. I was
but no, I'm gonna have a HBCU. I'm gonna have a couple of them on the podcast. Cause,
this about to be fun.
Yeah, I think a 3-to-1 is a good handicap for them.
Good luck.
Like, yeah, to them.
Okay.
But yeah, I want because I hate the HBCU versus PWI argument. But thanks so much for having me on your podcast and vice versa.
Thank you for inviting me and doing all of this.
The collab is this was one of the collabs I was looking for because I like the educational talk, and then you had a good perspective of, because I didn't know that most of your kids were from everywhere.
Yes.
Because either mostly it's like, yeah, my kids are black or my kids are white. I'm like, well, you got iPod shuffle mode. You got everything.
No, I got the Great American Melting Pot. Y'all go listen to that. Schoolhouse Rock is on Disney Plus now.
But yeah, so shout out your podcast one more time.
A Fraction of My Reality. Yeah.
So you guys go listen to her podcast. It's very educational. I actually listened to the first episode. Have not listened to the second one yet, but I'm going to listen to it.
I have a new episode coming next week. So.
But yeah, so that was Nikki, my really, really close friends. This is Man Versus, and we're out.